So I've underlined in yellow some of the key points that stick out to me, and they should be sticking out to you as well from having read this study, in terms of important things to note. So the first point is in the first line, and I'll point here with my cursor. Psychometric intelligence data at age 11 years were obtained from the Scottish Mental Health Survey 1932. Two things I'd like to point out here. One thing is that they tested IQ at age 11. They didn't test IQ in middle age, or when women were married, or when men were married. They took IQ tests from the age of 11, so that is worth bearing in mind. It was childhood IQ rather than adult IQ. The second one, the second underlined part that I want to draw your attention to is the date of the two studies, or the two data sets at which the researchers drew upon. One was from 1932 and the other one was from the 1970s. Something to bear in mind here, that the social sort of landscape around this time was very different in terms of gender equality, women's role, life expectancy, social class, etc., etc. So all of these things obviously have an impact, and had a different impact on marriage, relationships, etc., than they would now. So that's another thing to bear in mind. So they tested mental ability using the Moray House test, and they tested it on all 1921 born children attending school in Scotland. So I'm pointing out this bit because it was focused on a Scottish data set. So children in Scotland, that means that the results might not be applicable to other parts of the world, and children from other backgrounds and other educational backgrounds. The test is referred to in the original publication as the verbal test. And the second point is IQ type. So they were testing IQ through a verbal test and the MSM 1932 test of mental ability via the Moray House test. You don't need to worry too much about the different tests, but just know that this is how they tested for IQ. They also conducted a physical examination. So again, we're slowly starting to realize that it wasn't just intelligence that was a factor in this study. There were other factors that played a part, such as physical examinations, which included height. They then looked at marital status. So later on, they looked at whether the participants in these big groups were married. And this was based on self-report measures. So they asked participants whether they had been married, had ever been married, and had remained married, or instead, had they remained single or other. So self-report methods is a very common way of testing for something, because you can just ask a participant yes, no, or a range of options if it's a personality test, for example. However, self-report tests are something that often come with limitations. They can be unreliable, and they can be vulnerable to biases, which we'll look at later.